Let's begin with a difficult truth. You didn't fall for her because of who she truly is. You fell for what she awakened in you. That pull, that spark, that magnetic force, it isn't just her smile or her voice. It's deeper, much deeper. It's the reflection of something already inside you. Carl Jung called it the anima, the inner feminine every man carries within his unconscious. It is the blueprint of your desire. The silent reason why, out of 1,000 faces, hers feels different. Before you think this is just about romance, listen closely. This is about identity. It is about the hidden architecture of your soul. You don't just fall in love. You project. And what you project can be the most powerful illusion you will ever face. She becomes the screen onto which your inner world is cast. And here is the danger. What you're drawn to isn't entirely real. The anima is not a person. She is an archetype. She has lived inside you since birth, shaped by your mother's energy, by the women you admired, and by the culture that defined beauty and love for you. She is both chaos and comfort, desire and fear. And when a woman enters your life who carries an echo of that inner pattern, not in looks but in energy, you fall. But you don't fall in love. You fall into projection. Jung warned that if a man never confronts his anima, she will rule him from the shadows. She will make him chase illusions, worship beauty, and confuse emotional chaos for connection. She doesn't care if the woman in front of you is good for you, only that she feels familiar. So you meet someone. You get that click, that rush, that impossible chemistry. But chemistry is not truth. It is memory. It is projection. And you lose control. You place her on a pedestal. You overgive. You betray yourself to keep her close. You suffer, because the woman you think you love is only partly real. The rest is built from your unresolved past. Nietzsche once said, "Sometimes people don't want to hear the truth because they don't want their illusions destroyed." In love, the hardest illusion to break is the one you've built yourself. Ask yourself, was it really love? Or was it your unconscious craving? Was she truly the one, or just the one who fit the shape of the woman your inner world longed for? Jung believed the anima is not evil, but she is dangerous if left unintegrated. She is meant to be understood, not projected. To be brought into your conscious awareness, not allowed to pull your strings. The moment you recognize her, the illusion begins to crack. You see that you weren't always choosing women, you were choosing wounds. You were chasing closure through connection. The women you loved were teachers, not because of who they were, but because of what they triggered in you. The longing, the ache, the emptiness. Jung wrote, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain. To become whole, you must face the anima, not to banish her, but to integrate her. To reclaim the sensitivity, the creativity, the intuition she represents. When you integrate, you stop falling for illusions. You stop confusing chaos for chemistry. You stop needing her to validate your worth, because you've reclaimed it for yourself. You become the man who sees beauty clearly without worshiping it. The man who loves without losing himself. The man who walks away when his peace is threatened, not because he doesn't feel, but because he finally understands what he feels." So ask yourself with brutal honesty, is it love or is it projection? Does she deserve your loyalty, or does she just carry the outline of the woman your unconscious has been chasing? Until you ask this, you will repeat the cycle again and again. Each time calling it love. Each time calling it fate. When in truth, it is your unconscious pulling the strings. Carl Jung didn't teach us to fear the anima. He taught us to face her. To question our instincts, to separate truth from trance. Because the most powerful force in a man's life is not a woman, it is his idea of her. And once you understand that, you stop living as a boy chasing a fantasy. You start living as a man choosing reality. The hardest truth to accept is that you've been here before. Different faces, different names, same story. The rush of attraction, the intoxicating chemistry, the deep certainty that this time is different. But then the same ending. Carl Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. That is why the same type of woman keeps appearing. That is why the same heartbreak keeps finding you. It isn't fate. It isn't bad luck. It's a pattern. And the pattern will continue until you stop treating the symptom and start addressing the cause. The cause lives inside you. It lives in the unexamined parts of your past. It lives in the way you learned to love before you even knew what love was. Most men never question this. They believe attraction is a mystery. They think chemistry is proof of destiny. They don't realize it can be proof of a wound. When a woman appears and lights up every nerve in your body, your first instinct is to move closer, to secure her attention, to make her yours. But what if the pull isn't towards her, but towards the part of you she represents? Nietzsche said, no one can build you the bridge on which you and only you must cross the river of life. Breaking the cycle means walking that bridge alone first. You must face the ache without rushing to fill it. You must stand in the emptiness without distracting yourself with someone new. You must learn to give yourself what you've been chasing from others. And here's the truth. This is the most uncomfortable work you will ever do. Because it feels unnatural at first. Feels lonely. It feels wrong to not chase what you desire. But desire without awareness is a trap. It will keep you running in circles, mistaking repetition for romance. Carl Jung also said, the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. The question is, are you being transformed into your highest self, or just into someone desperate to keep the connection alive at any cost? Breaking the cycle requires a pause. Not a pause from women, but a pause from chasing. It requires you to sit with the feelings you've been outsourcing. To notice the way loneliness rises and falls. To notice how much of your worth has been placed in someone else's hands. And when you can hold that worth yourself, the projection loses its grip. You stop seeing women as saviors. You stop needing them to complete you. You start meeting them as equals, not idols. The irony is, when you break the cycle, you actually become more attractive. Because you are no longer coming from hunger. You are no longer asking someone to feed the parts of you you refuse to feed yourself. Marcus Aurelius said, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. The cycle ends the moment you stop trying to control the person in front of you and start mastering the person within you. When you do this, your standards change. The people you choose change. The relationships you build change. You will no longer fall for the same illusions because you've already met their source, and it was never outside of you. The anima is no longer a puppeteer. She becomes a guide. She reminds you of what you value, but she no longer decides for you. And in that shift, you step out of the loop. You stop living the same love story with different faces. You start writing a new one where attraction is grounded in truth, and love is chosen, not chased. Breaking the cycle is not the end. It is only the clearing of space. If you stop at that stage, you risk building walls instead of bridges. You risk cutting yourself off from the very qualities the anima was meant to awaken in you. Carl Jung said, the anima is the archetype of life itself. She is not your enemy. She is not a trick of the mind to be erased. She is a part of you, the part that feels deeply, that imagines vividly, that connects beyond logic. If you reject her completely, you become hollow. You become efficient, but empty, safe, but unfulfilled. Integration is not suppression. It is ownership. It begins when you stop blaming women for what your anima projected. It begins when you take back responsibility for the longing you once outsourced. It begins when you recognize that every attraction was a mirror, and every heartbreak was a lesson in self-return. Nietzsche said, "He who despises himself still respects himself as one who despises." When you despise your own emotional depth, you cut yourself in half. You live only from the surface. Integration means you stop fearing your inner feminine. You stop equating sensitivity with weakness. You stop avoiding the parts of you that are soft, intuitive, or nurturing, because those qualities are not a threat to your masculinity, they are the balance to it. Carl Jung also said, "The meeting with oneself is at first the meeting with one's own shadow. The anima carries pieces of that shadow. Some are painful. Some are beautiful. All are necessary." When you integrate her, you begin to notice subtle shifts. You no longer chase beauty for validation. You appreciate it without trying to possess it. You no longer confuse intensity for intimacy. You choose connection that feels steady and mutual. You no longer feel powerless in attraction. You can feel it fully and still choose your path. Integration is daily work. It's in the way you respond to temptation. It's in the way you set boundaries without resentment. It's in the way you let yourself love without dissolving into someone else's life. Marcus Aurelius said, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." When your anima is integrated, her energy no longer distorts those thoughts. She inspires them. She brings creativity to your logic, compassion to your strength, and meaning to your ambition. This doesn't mean every relationship will last. It doesn't mean you stop feeling heartbreak, but it does mean heartbreak will no longer destroy you, because you will not lose yourself in it. You will no longer be a man pulled endlessly by unconscious desire. You will be a man guided by conscious choice. And when you meet a woman who resonates with your inner world, you will not project your soul onto her. You will meet her as she is, not as a vessel for what you've been missing. Integration frees you from the extremes. You are no longer intoxicated by the rush, and you are no longer bitter when it fades. You can stay, or you can walk away, both without losing your center. Because now the anima is not a ghost haunting your relationships. She is a voice within you. One you listen to, one you honor, but one you choose to guide, instead of being guided by her alone. When the anima is integrated, your way of choosing changes. You no longer chase the high of instant chemistry. You no longer fall into the trance of familiarity. You no longer confuse being triggered with being in love. Carl Jung said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." Once you are anchored in who you are, you choose from clarity, not from craving. Clarity is not about finding someone perfect. It is about knowing what matters to you and refusing to trade it for short-term pleasure. When you meet someone new, you notice more than beauty. You notice how you feel in their presence. You notice whether your nervous system calms or spikes. You notice whether they meet you with curiosity or control, and you no longer ignore the red flags just because the connection feels intoxicating. Nietzsche said, "Invisible threads are the strongest ties." Clarity allows you to see those threads, the subtle patterns of respect, trust, and emotional safety that will hold a relationship when attraction alone cannot. Choosing with clarity means asking harder questions. Does this person respect my boundaries? Do they take responsibility for their own growth? Do they show me their reality, not just their potential? It also means being willing to walk away when the answer is no, even if every part of your body wants to stay. Marcus Aurelius said, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." In love, this becomes a filter. If it is not right for your peace, you do not stay. If it is not true to your values, you do not pretend it is. With clarity, love becomes a choice, not an accident. You no longer fall into relationships, you walk into them, eyes open, heart open, boundaries intact. This doesn't make love less passionate. It makes it deeper. Because now, passion is not laced with fear. You are not afraid they will leave if you show your truth. You are not afraid to lose yourself just to keep them close. Clarity changes the kind of partner you attract. You no longer draw those who thrive on your unhealed needs. You attract those who value your wholeness, who are not intimidated by it, who meet it with their own. Carl Jung also said, "Your visions will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes." Choosing love with clarity is what it feels like to be awake. It doesn't mean every relationship will be forever. It means you no longer measure love by its length, but by its truth. And when it ends, you can grieve without collapse. You can remember without regret. You can love again without fear of repeating the past. Because you know you will never again choose from the shadow alone. You will choose from the whole of who you are. When you have met your anima, faced your projections, and learned to choose with clarity, love becomes something entirely different. It is no longer a battlefield for your self-worth. It is no longer a rescue mission for your loneliness. It is no longer a game of proving your value to be chosen. Carl Jung said, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." When you have done that, you enter love without fear of disappearing inside it. You bring your whole self, not half of you, not the edited version, the real one, with your boundaries, your desires, your truth intact. This changes how you give. You give freely, but not to earn love. You give because it is an honest extension of who you are, not a bargain for security. Nietzsche said, "Love your fate, which is in fact your life." When you love yourself enough to stand whole, you can love another without trying to control their path. You can allow them to be who they are, even when it challenges you. Loving without losing yourself means you no longer fear distance. You no longer panic at the idea of disagreement. You no longer measure safety by constant closeness, because you know you are safe inside yourself. This freedom also means you stop overgiving to keep the connection alive. You stop shrinking to make space for them. You stop silencing your truth just to keep the peace. Marcus Aurelius said, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." When your thoughts are grounded in self-respect, your love takes on the same color. You love with openness, but you protect your center. You love deeply, but you never abandon yourself in the process. And here's the paradox. The less you try to hold on, the stronger the connection becomes. Because it is not built on fear. It is built on choice, mutual respect, and the freedom to walk away without erasing the love that was shared. Carl Jung also said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." When you have claimed that privilege, love is no longer about finding someone to complete you. It is about finding someone to share the completeness you already carry. You will still feel attraction. You will still feel the rush. You will still feel the pull of the anima. But now you see it for what it is. You let it guide you without letting it blind you. This is the freedom on the other side, to stand in love without losing your ground, to give without fear of depletion, to stay without fear of being consumed. And if the relationship ends, you do not collapse back into the boy chasing a fantasy. You remain the man who chooses reality. Love will still move you, will still change you, but it will never again cost you yourself. That is the kind of love worth waiting for, and the kind of love only you can give yourself first.